Well, it is still morning at NTV, and this time I'm coming to you from the Rain Hotel here in Katavi Town Council, Wakiso District, and we will be speaking matters drone services. Yeah, drone operations in Uganda continue to be regulated by government, with the security authorities overseeing procedures for enforcement. Recently, the Civil Aviation Authority issued guidelines requiring drone operators to acquire relevant licenses before using Uganda's airspace. And currently, drones are primarily used in the country's mining sector, agriculture surveys, to facilitate the transition from traditional methods to the digital systems. Although Uganda has fewer drone training and licensing institutions, among others, the visual-related works. This morning, I will be speaking to Alan Ombo, who is the managing director for FlyQuest Drone Services in the country, one of the companies that have just been licensed by the Civil Aviation, to just give us the insights of how these operations really stand to be regulated. But what is so good with the drone operations and licensing in the country? Alan, thank you so much for joining me on Morning at NTV.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
My name is Alan Oombo, as you've said,
Yes.
and I represent FlyQuest Drone Center. We are approved drone training organization and drone operation.
Okay.
And
Fresh from Kenya, I should say welcome to Uganda.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We want to understand, what is so special about drone navigation training and licensing that you're offering these services to Uganda?
Because, drone, it is called an aircraft before it even becomes a drone. So the official name is unmanned aircraft. So drone is an aircraft. And drone being an aircraft, regulations of an aircraft applies to a drone. So depending on the service someone needs, you can get a bigger drone or a smaller drone. And this is the future, because we are heading towards data-driven decisions and also efficiency in daily operations.
Someone would want to understand what kind of drones are we talking about, but also, why do you think someone needs to be licensed and trained to operate a drone?
Someone needs to be licensed so that he can understand the safety procedures, the security, and the operational. I'll give you an example. After the World War, the aircrafts, there were no regulations. But the people in authority sat down and had a convention. It's called Chicago Convention. So that is when rules came into play for aircrafts.
Yes.
So the same thing with drone. The CA, the Civil Aviation, the National Security sat down and gave guidelines on how to operate drone, on how to learn, on how to train, and anything related to drone. So you need the knowledge so that you can fly safely, and you cannot infringe other people's security, and you can be operational. Yes, yeah.
And you didn't tell us the kind of drones we're talking about, because some of the audiences may think these are drones that are being used on weddings, and other functions normally. But what kind of drones are we talking about?
No, the drones vary depending on the use. So, of course, people know drones for wedding because that is what they relate with on their daily basis. If you go to Middle East right now, the drone they know is not the drone for wedding. They know the drone that can reach Iran to Israel. That is equally a drone. So depending on the purpose of the drone, drone for agriculture is very different from a surveying drone. Drone for agriculture is meant to carry weight. You're talking about 40-liter, 50-liter, 70-liter capacity drone. Drone for surveillance, it is meant to go far. So if a drone that is meant to go far, it will reduce its weight as much as possible. But a drone that is meant to spring and carrying cargo, it has to be heavy. So depending on the purpose of the drone and the usage, we have different types of drone. We have a drone that can go maybe from, you're talking about $500 to maybe $2 million, depending on the purpose of a drone. We have a drone that is the size of an aircraft. Just the same with our national airline, Uganda. When they're flying to within Africa, they use a different type of aircraft, which is smaller. When they're flying outside of Africa, they use a bigger aircraft. Same thing with drone. When you're on a map, Entebbe only, we use a certain type of drone. When you're on a map from Entebbe to Kampala and Jinja, we use a different type of drone.
Okay, let's draw the conversation back home. What kind of drone services are you bringing into Uganda? We know, of course, like you've just hinted on it, drones used in agriculture, surveying and mining. So which services are you bringing to Uganda, and why Uganda?
Because the technology cuts across various industry. We are talking about agriculture, mining, urban development, surveying and mapping, security. Anything that has an aerial solution, a drone can provide. So if, for example, I want to take agriculture, you want to spray your farm, a drone can do that. We've seen people, back in the days, they used to have people who carry
Spray pumps.
But this guy, some of them will go and sleep in the farm and come back and say, I am done. But for a drone, before a drone flies, it maps the farm. So it will spray equally in all field. Another beauty thing in agriculture is called precision agriculture. This is where a drone surveys a farm and gives you the status of the farm, the health status of the farm. So if the farm, let's say some parts of the areas are encroached by water or by heat, that data should tell the farmer that this particular area of the farm is affected by heat or by water, too much water.
Are you trying to tell us that you're bringing solutions to Uganda's agriculture and other industries? What exactly are you trying to?
Yes, I'm bringing, I will say, sort of a data-driven decision. That is something that can even help the national government, because this is a technology, when embraced, you will see a difference in decision-making and even cutting costs in daily operation. So when you pick about things like mining, there's something called a stockpile, where a drone gives you the volume of whatever you've extracted. If, for example, you are mining, let me say there's something in cement called maybe pumice pozzolana. If you're mining pumice, you've extracted 100,000 volumes. So when you are the owner of the mining site, the waste that has been extracted and the content that has been extracted has to match the total of the excavator. So drone helps in those data-driven decisions. We're talking about even surveillance, security, or even the wildlife services.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. We have always had the challenges with the Uganda Wildlife Authority for poaching in the national parks. But I've seen somewhere else that I want to mention, when they're using drones for surveillance 24/7.
They're using it for surveillance because, number one, the drone don't use human energy, so they can fly 24/7. Number two, it has some AI algorithm. A drone can count an animal. So when you have, maybe you're talking about rhinos, a drone says this ranch has 1,000 rhinos. So it can count the rhinos for you. You wake up in the morning, you deploy the drone, it counts for you the rhinos. So you don't need a physical presence. And number two, you don't even interfere with the nature of the animal. Because these animals, now when people keep showing up, you do the manual labor, there's a big difference. When you fly a drone so high, it makes the work efficient. And also you don't interfere with the nature. And it can differentiate the poacher and the animal, because it has those sensors, like the thermal sensors, that can really monitor those kind of operations.
There is always a security element in, of course, getting a certificate to run these drones here. And that is what I've been reading through your manuals, that you're also training drone operators. What is it all about that security has picked interest into drones?
Security, you see, they're in charge of the national security and protection of the country. Anybody who wants to operate drone, you have to be vetted by the security. Once you're vetted is when now the civil aviation regulates you. Civil aviation cannot regulate you when you've not been vetted by the security. So security, of course, they've usually done an excellent job. And this is a technology that has to be embraced. It has its good sides, and of course, some people have used it with other alternatives. So that is why security has to be priority.
Installations.
Yes, yes, things like that. So national security has to vet everybody, even us. We are vetted every 6 months. All the projects we've ever done has to be vetted by the security to see whether we breach some of the compromises or some of the operations that we did here.
Okay. So how can people access such services? We have seen most people who are flying drones in Kampala, they don't mind about the security of somebody's home. The drone is just all over in the space, maybe security installations. But what are you looking at also in training Uganda's drone operators or drone navigators this time and certifying them?
The goal is to build local capacity so that efficiency can be improved in every workforce. Of course, there have been... the regulation is a bit late in terms of exposure. So now there are people who have been using drones in filming, etc. And they are the people who have been leading to the number of incidents. But you know what the authority says, or what the law usually says? Ignorance is not a defense in the court of law. So when somebody comes for training, he comes to understand the security procedure of the country. You don't just fly drone anywhere. There's like, for example, here, we on an airspace, a flight path. So look at the risk you're causing to passengers when you fly drone that kind of high. Because you don't have those kind of knowledge, so you cannot interpret the procedures like that. So training, number one, builds with the procedures, and you get the knowledge. And it's a skill. So once you master the skill, you can be able to fly anywhere. Another advantage is this is a license. When you get it in Uganda, it's approved by the civil aviation, which is recognized. You can go to any country and convert that particular license, even in the UK, and you operate. All you need to do is an air law, because the regulations might be different. You know, for example, here in Entebbe, the airport and the Kampala are a bit some distance. But places like maybe Nairobi, they have a national park, they have an airport inside the city. So operations becomes more complex. Yeah.
So someone would ask, how do those who need the services, both for training, those who want to use maybe, like you talked about, our agriculture, the mining system and the wildlife, where do they find your services, and how easily can they maybe communicate or connect with you?
Now, for us, the operations, we are based in Entebbe, but that is the office, but we can operate anywhere. Training can be done everywhere. So we have our social media handles, where we have our website, the FlyQuest Drone Center, where you can just call for inquiry. Alternatively, if you have any doubt, you can go to the civil aviation and ask them, are these people legit? Can you give them, or can I get their contact? And authority will always advise you.
So you're saying that on Facebook, FlyQuest Drone Services, Instagram, Twitter, website?
Absolutely. The website is just FlyQuest Drone Center.
Okay.
Yes.
For time reasons, we will not push the conversation beyond this, but Alan, I want to thank you so much for making time to speak to us.
Thank you so much. We are looking forward to building this nation, the national capacity and the individual talent, so that we can grow and adapt with the trends in the technology.
Well, Alan Ombo is the managing director for FlyQuest Drone Services here in Entebbe. It's newly introduced in Uganda, partly trying to address some concerns that now come with the digital relationships. But of course, we think maybe the ministries will have to look into what they can buy from the services. But for time reasons, you'll allow me leave the conversation here. Good morning to you, our audience.